Hello and welcome to At the Bench with Silver Dollar Productions. In this video I'm going to show you how to take the movement out of almost any General Electric or Revere Westminster chime clock. And afterwards I'm going to show you how to properly take the rotor out. Now this video is going to cover movements made between 1933 and 1960. If you're not sure exactly when your clock was made, let me show you the type of movement that we're looking for. If you look through the back door of your clock, you should see something very similar to this. Okay, this particular movement is the movement that was used for decades between 1933 and 1960. If you're looking through the back door and you see a big movement that looks like this is a pre-1933 movement, and taking these out and working on them is much more difficult than the other ones, and that is not going to be covered in this particular video. Now, before we begin, let's take a look at some of the tools that you're going to need to do the job. The first thing you'll need will be a pair of wire cutters, and then what you're going to want, a hobby screwdriver, and possibly one or two different types of flathead screwdrivers. And then last but not least, you're going to want some small poly bags or some other type of little container to go ahead and put your small screws in as we proceed. Now, obviously, the first thing you want to do is double check to make sure that your clock is unplugged. I find this operation to be a little bit easier while doing it on my lap. And the first thing we're going to want to do is remove the bezel. Now, most of these Reveres will have a bezel either oval shaped like this or round. And you're going to see that it has two pins. These are friction set bezels. Now, I know for a fact this particular oversized bezel here is going to have 4 pins. And what you want to do is you need to get under it with your fingernails. Do not use a screwdriver. You'll scratch your wood guaranteed, and just gently start to lift it out. Just like that. Okay, the second thing you're going to want to do then is remove the hands. Now the second hand pulls straight out. Just grab it, pull it out. And you're going to find out that there's usually a small nut there holding on the minute hand. And most of the time you can just go ahead and turn that with your fingers, but if it's a little too tight, you could just use your wire cutters here and give it a turn. Take the nut off and then pull the hand straight off. Now this particular clock, this is slightly unusual because there's another little nut right here holding on the hour hand, and you're going to find that nut does not exist on most of the clocks, but again, you're going to want to remove that nut. And then go ahead and pull your hour hand straight off, just like that. The dials on these clocks are generally held in with silvered screws. Almost all the dials you're going to see are going to have 4 screws, but this particular dial, because it's oversized, actually has 6. There's one there, there, and you can see them all the way around. And you're going to want to use your hobby screwdriver to go ahead and take them out. Okay, I'm coming down to the last screw on here. Now, another tip when you're doing this is you want to use your fingers here. Cover the screw to protect your dial just in case the screwdriver slips. The last thing you want to do is put a big scratch in there, and you can see as I remove the last screw, the dial comes right off. Now all of these movements are held in by 3 screws, okay, as you can see right there. Now there's a few clock cases that you're going to find that when you open it up is going to look like this. You're going to have a big metal ring right here, and the movement is also going to be held in with 3 screws. So they're all held in with 3 screws, but some of them just a little bit differently than others. Okay, the next thing you want to do is disconnect your power cord from the coil. Now, on this particular clock here, if you look here, you can see that I will not have to cut the wires because I'll be able to slide the cord right out. Most of these clocks are going to have to cut the wires, so go ahead and use your wire cutters and cut them. Don't worry about it, you'll be able to reconnect them later. Then what you're going to want to do is use your fingers as best as you can, loosen up the grommet, and then go ahead and take your wire out like I just did there. Once you're done with that, then you're ready to go ahead and take the movement out. And again, I like to do this on my lap because it's easier to put my hand underneath and hold the movement while I work on it. And go ahead and start removing your 3 screws. Okay, I'm down to my last screw here. And what's important when doing this now is to hold the movement in place. Don't let it drop off the back of the clock. So I'm using my left hand to hold it. Taking the screw out. Okay, some of these do have finishing washers, so make sure you get all the parts off of there. Okay, turn your clock over. holding the movement. At this point in time, if you can, raise the lever to lock the hammer arms into place and slowly take the movement out. Alright, as you can see, I've got all my small parts in the little bags. I'm going to go ahead and set them aside, and the next thing we're going to want to do is, let's get that rotor out of here. And the first thing you have to do is remove these two screws right here. Now keep in mind that when you remove the screws, this plate will also come off, but also watch, because sometimes you're going to see spacers on some of these. They're going to be located somewhere right behind the rotor. So watch for a couple parts that might fall out as you go ahead and do this. And all you need then is just a good sized screwdriver. Make sure it fits the screw properly, and go ahead and take the screws out. Alright, let's get the screw out. You can see this comes right off. And in order to get that coil off the rotor, just use your thumbs and push, and off it comes. Now you can see we're left with the rotor just hanging on here. You're going to notice that most of these clocks, well, all of them actually, these rotors are going to have a pinion gear. I'm not sure if you could see that. It's located right there. And this gear has to come off before the rotor does. Now this gear is actually held on by a very, very small set screw. And in order to get that off, you're going to need to loosen the set screw using your small screwdriver. Turn it. And then just go ahead and pull the rotor straight out. Don't forget to account for your gear, and as a precaution, go ahead and tighten that screw in a little bit. The last thing you want to do is lose that screw. And that's it. You're ready to go.